Good morning, afternoon, and evening again to the U-Term universe. This is April Lynn Grubb. I'm an LPN in my senior year of BSN at Indiana State University, providing clinical health education for Nursing 444 Community Health Nursing. Today I was going to talk about farm safety for children and teens. I happen to live in a very rural neighborhood, and this topic is very prevalent in our community, and I thought it pretty important to address. Before we get started though, if you will float down to the comments of this video, there is a link to a Google Drive where you could find a pre and post test as well as a handout. Please take the pre-test before you start so that you can then take it after and assess, did I learn something from this presentation? These are just the learning objectives, and those will appear also on your handout, so I will not read them for you. They are here. So our top tips for child farm safety. Never enter a flowing grain bin. People who don't live on a farm would not necessarily know this. Children who don't live on a farm would not necessarily know this, but flowing grain acts like very forceful quicksand. Suffocation happens within minutes. Never let a child or teen enter a grain bin while it's being loaded or unloaded, and especially teaching teens about this danger specifically. Teaching children about how to fight fires on farms. Children as old as 4 or 5 are able to learn the pass method of pulling a pin, aiming at the base of the fire, squeezing the trigger, and sweeping back and forth. And I know that that seems like a very young age, but they can follow 4 steps. And we do need to educate our children, especially in rural areas where fire departments are miles away, that there are things we can do to try to prevent a larger catastrophe on a fire. Wearing protective equipment when using chemicals. There are chemicals, both organic and non-organic, used on farms, and those chemicals, organic or non-organic, are dangerous. So we do emphasize using goggles, rubber gloves, respirators, heavy-duty clothing that can prevent issues, but only if they're worn correctly. So you have to teach your children how to wear them correctly. Another big thing about farm safety is handling animals safely. Our dogs and kitties at home are not like cows, horses, and pigs. Even the most tame cow does not know that she is 2,000 pounds and you are 100 pounds. And they, even trying to love on you, can hurt you, especially children. So we need to educate our children about where to stand if they're touching an animal, to always be able to get away from the animal, so not to pin themselves in. There's a lot of things that we need to teach our children about farm animals, and the resources at the end of this video, I recommend you going and visiting those for more tips about animals specifically. Farm equipment. This is something I tell my children all the time. Farm equipment is big and children are not. The truth is that a driver in a combine or a tractor or a backhoe or anything on a farm cannot see you and cannot hear you. So you should never go in a field or approach a tractor or the like without first making eye contact with the driver. The driver should be idled down and parked. If that tractor is moving or revved up, the child doesn't have eye contact with the driver, the child should never enter their space. You give them a very wide berth. We teach our kids to stay far, far away until you see the door of the tractor open. You never ever walk behind a piece of farm machinery when it is turned on for any reason. They cannot see you, they cannot hear you. Even an adult, they cannot see you and cannot hear you. Riding in farm equipment is dangerous. Now, this is a big one for farm families, and I come from a farm family who has always ridden in our farm equipment. And I think there is a way to do it safely. If you go on to most safety websites, they're going to tell you that children should never ride in any farm equipment ever. And I think that's illogical. because especially in farming families, when farmers are working until 10 or 11 o'clock at night and they don't get to see their dad for weeks on end, it's not going to happen. Every child wants to go ride with their dad in the combine or in the auger cart or whatever. So there are ways to make sure that things are safe. They need to be riding in something that's large and stable, like a tractor or a combine. Things like backhoes and excavators and more construction-like equipment that are on uneven ground and can roll easily. Those are ones that you would want to avoid with your children. Children should ride in the buddy seat and be buckled in. And children who are allowed to ride need to be old enough not to be a distraction. You know your children. If your child is a very hyper 3-year-old, they do not belong in a tractor. If your child is like mine and can sit in a tractor for hours and not move, those are the kids who can be in a tractor. Don't let your child ride if the conditions are unsafe. And you can always ask the driver, hey, do you think this is a safe day? Or do you think we might need to do something different? ATVs and UTVs. This is a biggie. There's 4 things here that I think you should know. Riding the right size ATV, UTV, never carrying multiple riders. You will notice that statistics there is 75% of deaths under 6 in children involving an ATV involves multiple riders, and it's typically an adult. Keeping ATVs and UTVs for off-road use only. Someone who's never ridden an ATV before won't understand this, but any of us who have, if you are on pavement and you turn on an ATV, it turns on a dime and you will throw yourself, and that's when you get hurt. Indiana state law requires this now, but you must, under the age of 18, wear a full helmet with a face guard and chin strap every time. This will prevent most tragic injuries on ATV accidents. Teen farm workers. Approximately 300,000 teens who don't live on a farm are actually employed on a farm in the US. There are a lot of benefits to farm life. There is a sense of contributing to society, earning income, learning a trade, providing an opportunity for hands-on learning, which a lot of kids really enjoy. And there's also this chance to see their work through the growth cycle of life cycle of animals and crops, which does provide a sense of accomplishment, self-confidence, and pride in children. We see this a lot in farm kids, and it's one of the reasons that I myself moved back to home to raise my children here. But there are things we need to do to keep teens safe who work. We need to model safe working behavior. You know, you can tell them till they're blue in the face, but if they saw you do something that it wasn't exactly safe, but they saw dad do it or they saw their boss do it, they're probably going to follow suit. So model safe working behavior, encourage awareness of surroundings, because children and teens are just not aware of their surroundings. Demonstrate the key safety points on all of the equipment they might use. Not only tell them tasks, but then you need to tell them the task, demonstrate the task, and then watch them perform it. Let them ask questions, and then they're going to make mistakes. You need to teach them what to do in case of a mistake or a bad situation, help them understand the consequences, and make sure you keep your lines of communication open, because these children are still kids. Where can you learn more? These websites I find were excellent, and that last website, that Purdue Safety Online Resources, has probably 7 to 14 pages of safety resources about farming, and I just felt that was a really good one. So if you have a chance to click on that, it's got lots of resources for you. Here's some of the references that I used to create today's PowerPoint. I hope you've enjoyed our presentation, and if you will, please take the post test again so that you can see if you caught everything you needed to. Thanks, and have a great night.